Howdy, I am Brooklyn Blaylock. Kayla will be making her appearance later in the video with the other half of the climax and the impact. And it was good that we had two of us, that way we could divide it equally. And it was both of us were getting good knowledge on the subject, on all parts that the project had to offer, so it was interesting to be able to work in that aspect, especially in the midst of the pandemic. But on that note, let's get started. I hope you're safe, I hope you're healthy. But this is our project over the .com bubble. So in the beginning, it went from 1995 to 2001. It was a stock market bubble caused by excessive speculation in internet-related companies in the late 1990s, and it was a period of extreme growth while trying to adopt the internet. It was also known as the .com boom, the tech bubble, and the internet bubble, so it went by many different names. It was known in many different ways, but I know for me personally, doing research over this subject, was very different, because when we were doing the pick of the topics, I wasn't really sure what the .com bubble was. So I actually loved getting to do research over this and learning the impacts that this had on the economy, but also on society as well. So in the midst of the rise of the .com bubble, the value of equity markets grew. And one of several asset bubbles that have appeared over the past century. So when the crash followed after the NASDAQ index, it had risen fivefold between 1995 and 2000. And I know, again, for me personally, I didn't really know what a lot of these words meant. So I went through and defined a lot of them. So you'll see that in our PowerPoint as well. I have some of the words bold and highlighted. So equity markets is the aggregation of buyers and sellers of stocks, and the NASDAQ Stock Exchange was an American stock exchange located at One Liberty Plaza in New York City, and it was also ranked second in stock exchanges. So just to break it down more, in 1999, NASDAQ began the new year at 378.56. The internet starts off as a European organization for nuclear research and is based off of a project called Inquire. And Inquire was basically used to develop a system of interlocking hyperlinked projects that are similar to what websites look like today, so that scientists can find documents easier. Also in 1989, AOL Inc. Incorporated launched their internet or their instant messaging, which was obviously a huge deal, because without that we wouldn't have had necessarily the impact of communication that we do today. Also in 1990 through 1994, the first website and server goes live, and it was CERN. NASDAQ starts 1992 at 58 or 580.04. AOL Incorporated publicizes on the New York Stock Exchange. CERN goes on the public domain in the World Wide Web technology. NASDAQ's first day of trading in 1994 begins at 77.29. Pizza Hut is the first restaurant to have an online order, and Yahoo Incorporated was created by students Jerry Yang and David Philo, which I thought was super interesting, just because I think it really demonstrated or illustrated the impact that a student can have on the economy and in social media, and how things affect society, and how we as students have a lot of say in how things go. Some have more say than others, and I think it was interesting to be able to do research over this subject, and I loved it a lot. Now on to Kayla.
After the breakdown, we have the climax, which is the peak of the business, which is the peak of the dot-com bubble. It is 1995 through 2000s. A lot of these names should be familiar to you. The Craigslist Inc., eBay Inc., MSN, Match.com, all owned by Microsoft Corporation, are founded. Amazon.com Inc. opens its doors on August 9th, 1995. Netscape begins trading, launching the internet age. Demand for the shares is so strong that trading couldn't open for 2 hours. The stock is priced at $28 per share, but quickly soars to $75 before closing the day at $58. Microsoft releases Windows 95, which includes the first version of the internet browser, Internet Explorer. The second part of the climax, NASDAQ trading opens at 1,052.83 in the first session of the year. Online toy retailers eToys.com is founded. Pets.com goes online. Amazon.com initial public offering IPO takes place on May 15th with a price of $18 per share. At the height of the dot-com bubble, Amazon.com share price soars to $107 per share. During the climax, the peak was amazing, but after 2000, and kinda in 1999 is whenever the bubble started losing money. They crashed to where it was like, where all they knew, all of the dot-coms were losing money, not just the weaker ones. So, even though the dot-com bubble crashed, it paved the way for a lot of different websites. Like a lot of these websites that I said earlier, Amazon.com, eToys, MSN. A lot of these websites we already know to this day, and they're popular at this time. Even though it crashed in 2000, like a lot of this, it built the infrastructure for everything that we have now. So I think that was really important. It took a while. It took maybe like a whole decade to get all of the dot-coms back into how they were, back making a lot of money, back making a profit again. I know that NASDAQ took 15 years to get back on track, get back into profiting and stuff like that. The impact is next, and the impact that happened was the bubble era engendered a fever of entrepreneurship that hasn't existed since the Great Depression. So the dot-com bubble was so big, like the people who put all their time into this and the people who started this, they dreamed big. And there hasn't been anything like it since the Great Depression. So that was something that we needed for the economy. So it gave us another level of entrepreneurship. When entrepreneurs talk about how their technology will change the world, in the back of their mind is a cautionary tale of the dot-com bubble implosion. So, just like I said just now about the entrepreneurs, like this opened new doors. This gave people hope for that they could actually change the world, because it did change the world. It might not have been in that time in the 2000s. It was up and running for about for maybe a decade, and it was then it what's the word I'm looking for? It crashed, but it still paved the way for us. So whenever entrepreneurs talk about their technology changing the world, it's just an example of the .com bubble. All of the money poured into the tech companies the first half of the decade of the internet era created infrastructure and economic foundation that would allow the internet to mature. So, like I have been saying in the climax and now in the impact, even though they failed, we still have most of the websites that I said from the climax right now, and they're more popular than they've ever been. So, all of the money and all of the time put into the .com bubble was not wasted. It created a lot of things, and it created a lot of the technology that we have now.